Hi everyone, I hope you're well, and welcome to my health and wellbeing series videos that I'm putting together. This is video number 2, and in today's video we're going to be talking about emotions. Yes, I know, I'm probably hearing a few people doing some groaning there. So one of the blessings, and some might say curses, about being incarnated on a planet such as Earth is that we have to engage and work with an emotional body and, of course, a heart. So it is tricky and challenging to not to perceive emotions such as anger, frustration, depression, guilt in a negative way. I think we're kind of brought up for the most part to perceive that, experiencing certain emotions can be negative and it's not okay to experience those. And then all the good stuff like love, joy, peace, and all of that, those are generally perceived to be positive emotions. What's helpful though, because that's not actually helpful, but what is helpful is for us to be quite neutral about emotions. So rather than attaching a label to it and saying, anger is bad and joy is wonderful, is to be neutral about emotions and the emotional response patterns that we run. Because any emotional response pattern that we're running is actually valid feedback in terms of what's going on for us in our co-creative process. So as you probably already know, our thoughts that we have are electrical, and the emotions that we have are magnetic. And we engage our mental and emotional bodies all the time. And as we do this, we engage the creative process. Within our SRT system, we talk about something called the law of mind action, which tells us that what you hold in mind and attach an energy to, you create. So you have a thought, which is the electrical, you have the emotion, which is the magnetic. You put those two together, and then you have a creation or an experience. And we're actually doing this all the time. Most of the time we're doing this very unconsciously, of course. So the trick then is the more clear you get, the more you work through your stuff, the more conscious you become. It's really about moving into that conscious co-creation. So that's the kind of stretch goal for some people, depending on where you're at in your process. Within the SRT system, we are very blessed to work with something called the release statements. These are very, very powerful to use. I'll share a story in a minute about my own experience. And when you work with these statements, you are addressing things at both the mental and emotional level. So what you're doing is you're actually taking out the discordant, negative, limiting belief system that's creating challenge for you and in your reality. And then we replace it with something really positive, really supportive, something that's going to aid your co-creative process. So obviously in an SRT class, I would run through this process with students, and you can obviously work you can work with guidance to get very specific in putting these statements together. In my own experience, some years ago, following trauma within my family, I had a bit of a block in my business, a bit of a block with my income. I decided I was going to put aside 5 days of my time. I put together each day statements and did these statements for about 2 hours, then had to give that time to integrate. And at the end of the 3-week period, the floodgates really opened. My business really blossomed. It was a pretty incredible experience. So to say that those release statements are very powerful is probably an understatement. I'll not be taking you through a releasing statement in this video. That's generally something that I do when working with clients in session. However, just to show you a little bit about what we can do within the SRT practice before I move on to a practice that you can do at home to begin to support yourself in terms of transforming discordant negative emotional response patterns. So we can work with our SRTs within the SRT system and working with our higher spiritual guidance to identify the kinds of response patterns that we can run. Anything on this chart is what you would consider a response pattern. Some of the things are not listed on the chart. And so, for example, I mean, most people know when they're running anger. You can identify when you feel anger. Most people know when they feel frustrated, they feel guilty or depressed. But some of the others here, for example, low self-esteem. Not everyone can identify when they're running that unworthiness. Not everyone can identify when they're running. So some of them are a little bit more subtle, which is where, again, it's helpful to work with guidance so that they can bring these things to the light, or things that are not in our awareness to the light. So sometimes we will run a response pattern that is completely ours, 100% ours, and then we can do the work, the clearing work, the transformational work that's needed to transform that response pattern. Other occasions, though, what's going to happen is you're going to find that you are actually running somebody else's response pattern. And so let's just do an example there. So if we checked in with guidance about, what was the response pattern I was running, and guidance said, well, you're running anger. What you can do is you can get a numbers chart and you can ask your guidance. So this practice is really for SRT practitioners, or those who may even do a bit of dowsing. So you can ask, so for example, how much of the anger energy is mine? So double digits, just give me a ballpark. Okay, so 50% of the anger energy is mine. So that means that some of it's mine, but some of it is not. So the next logical question then is, whose anger energy am I running? So you can go through kind of like a checklist. I don't really necessarily need to use a chart for this. So is it soul family? No. Is it my ancestors? No. Is it the morphogenetic field? No. Is it from my family? Yes. And then you can get very specific. Which family? Is it your husband and your children? Or are we talking more about your biological or birth family? And then, of course, you'd need to work with guidance to identify what it is that's needed to move that energy out. Very interesting. As women, one of the things we can do and tend to do is we tend to absorb a lot of family energies. And where that tends to land is the uterus and the reproductive system. So as you can imagine, energy such as anger, for example, landing in the uterus, what does that create? What does that create at a physical level? Because emotions are creative, and they can create illness and disease just as much as they can create abundance and health and wealth and whatever else. So for some people, if they end up taking on family energies, including anger, that ends up landing in your uterus. You may end up with, endometriosis. You may end up with cysts on your ovaries. So I'm just giving examples here of how that can have a negative impact on your physical well-being, which, if it's left unresolved for a period of time, that can happen. All right, so what I want to do now, I've just given you a little bit of information about emotions and how we would work with this within the SRT as well as the MDS system. I'd now like to lead you through a very simple practice of how you can actually begin to transform discordant emotional response patterns for yourself. So this is a very basic practice. Anybody can do it. And so I'll just lead you through this now. So gently close the eyes and take a nice deep breath in through the crown of your head. And as a reminder, the moment you return to the breath, you're regrounding your energy, you're recentering your energy. Just holding an intention to be open to receive healing. And you can also ask for healing streamers of grace to come and support you and your process. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to do a body scan. So you might be aware that you're running a particular response pattern. Maybe you don't feel good. You don't even need to put a name to it, okay? Because feelings and sensations are the realm of the body, whereas when we have labels and words, it's generally the realm of the mind. But we're going to work with the physical body here. So what I want you to do is scan the body from the head all the way down, very slowly, down the body, down to the feet. And what are we scanning for? We're scanning for the area in the body where this particular feeling, emotion, sensation is residing. If you're not used to working with the body in this way, this can take a little bit of time to cultivate and practice. the bottom line is you want to really trust your body and trust your experience. So I'm just going to take an example here. So let's say I'm running anger energy and I locate that in my heart. So we can take a hand or both hands and place them over that particular area of the body. Now, if you're not someone who dowses and works with the SRT system and you cannot identify positive energies to bring in, that's perfectly okay. Whatever is coming to you intuitively will be fine. So, for example, you might want to bring in grace or peace or forgiveness or love or spiritual understanding. Whatever is coming to you intuitively is perfectly fine. The other way you can do it is just trust your guidance to bring in what is needed to move that energy out of that part of the body to allow it to transform. And so you're going to bring that resource, that frequency of love or peace or forgiveness in through the crown of your head from your 9th chakra, which is above your head, breathing it into the heart. Now, I'm just using this example, so I'm going to breathe it into my heart and just repeat it a few times over. So love and forgiveness, love and forgiveness, love and forgiveness, love and forgiveness. Take 1 or 2 breaths from the crown down to your feet and then into the 10th chakra below the feet, sending energy where it needs to go to the earth, and then giving thanks to your guidance and your spiritual helpers for assisting with this process. Okay, well, I hope you found that little practice helpful in some way. There will be more videos that I'll be posting within this health and wellbeing series at a future point in time. But in the meantime, wishing you much love and health, and I hope you have a beautiful day.